Hey y'all, thanks so much for stopping by my channel. I'm Courtney if you're new here. This video is going to be part of a fun collab hosted by several ladies, and tons of other ladies are participating in it. So I'll have all of their information as well as the link to the playlist to watch everybody else's videos who participated down in the description box below. I'm going to be sharing a pork chop recipe that I'd made in the crock pot with some sweet potatoes and apples, and then I'm also going to be sharing a recipe for the best mac and cheese that I've ever made, as far as I can recall anyway, and then also a marshmallow pumpkin dessert to top it off. So let's get on started, shall we? So to start things off, I'm starting with the crock pot meal recipe because that's what's going to take the longest, and it's my entree. So I've got my pork chops, the sweet potatoes, and apples. I'm using 6 thinly sliced pork chops. I'm sure the thick ones would probably be fine as well. I just really prefer the thin ones for some reason. So I've got 6 of those, and then I'm going to use some chicken broth, a pack of the onion Lipton soup mix, just 1 pack of that, 2 cups of apple juice, 2 sweet potatoes, some minced garlic, 2 apples, and then an onion. Before I was able to just dump everything into the crock pot and leave it, I needed to cut up my onion, so I cut that into slices, and then I peeled and diced up my sweet potatoes into chunks, and then after that I peeled the apples and cut those up as well. After I got everything chopped up, I got out a large bowl and combined the 1 cup of apple juice, 1 cup of chicken broth, the onion Lipton soup mix, and then a tablespoon of minced garlic into a bowl, and mix that all up together really good. After that, I put the sweet potatoes, apples, and onions into the crock pot in the bottom of it, and just kind of stirred those around to get them mixed up really good, and kind of separated the onions into individual slices. Then I placed all of the pork chops right on top of that before pouring on that apple juice chicken broth mixture on top. I just set it on high for 5.5 hours and then moved on to the pie. So for this pie, it's kind of a different take on pumpkin pie. It's going to be a marshmallow pumpkin pie, so it's a little bit lighter than the traditional pie, and I actually really enjoyed it this way. I haven't always been a fan of the traditional pumpkin pie, so what I'm using for this is a graham cracker shell pie crust and a bag of the large marshmallows, 1 cup of the pumpkin puree, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, half a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, as well as salt, and then an 8-ounce thing of whipped topping. So I turned my oven to medium-low heat and had the whole bag of marshmallows with the 1 cup of pumpkin puree, and then added my seasoning, so a teaspoon of that cinnamon, half a teaspoon of the pumpkin pie spice, and then half a teaspoon of the salt. And I combined all that together as best as I could, continually stirring it until it was smooth and melted through. Once it was nice and melted through, I just put it in a mixing bowl and set it to the side to cool until it got to room temperature before adding in the whipped cream and just folding that in until it's good and combined. Then all that's left to do is dump it in your pie pan and smooth it out however you want it to look, and then stick it in the fridge either overnight or for several hours. So yes, that means that we did not have this straight after supper, but it was still a good before bedtime snack. Now on to my favorite part of this whole video. This mac and cheese was my absolute favorite that I've ever had. I can't wait to have an excuse to make it again for family gatherings or anytime I get an excuse to make it. So I've got some elbow noodles, evaporated milk, then some salt and pepper, then 2 different kinds of cheeses. I've got white sharp cheddar as well as some mild cheddar, then 2 tablespoons of butter, some olive oil, then milk, flour, some breadcrumbs. Italian is what it's supposed to be, but I only had plain ones, so I added some Italian seasoning to it and it was totally fine, and then some more butter. I was just making enough of this mac and cheese to fit an 8x8 casserole dish, but you could easily double this, so I used 1.5 cups of those large elbow noodles, and I just cooked those until they were 2 minutes shy of being done according to the box. Drained them, added some olive oil, and stuck them in a bowl and set them aside. So in that same pot that I was cooking the noodles in, I had my 2 tablespoons of butter, melted it down, then added in a tablespoon of flour and stirred that around, added in 1 cup of milk after that was good and mixed in, and kept stirring that for a few minutes before adding in a whole can of evaporated milk. Then I added in my seasonings, so I've got 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, 3/4 a teaspoon of salt, and stirred that around really good. There's a lot of stirring involved in this in between adding ingredients, so that's what I did first. Then I added in half of my cheese. I tried to get a good mixture of both types of cheeses in there. And then, you know what's next? Stirring it some more. Keep stirring it off and on until it gets a good consistency like this. And then add in the elbow macaroni noodles again. Stir it around again, you guessed it. And then put it in your casserole pan. And then top it with the rest of that yummy cheese. The last thing you got to do that adds the extra yumminess is mix together 2 tablespoons of butter with 1 cup of the Italian breadcrumbs, or in my case, regular breadcrumbs with some Italian seasoning added in. Just stir it around, sprinkle it all over the mac and cheese. Then pop it in the oven on 350 for about 20 to 25 minutes. So here's how the pork chop meal came out. It was so tender that it was literally falling apart, and I just stuck it in a dish with the sweet potatoes and the apples underneath it, and it was ready to serve. Y'all, this mac and cheese, so good. That's all I got to say about that. It looks yummy, tastes yummy, and then here it is all plated up. The pork chops were really good. Sweet potatoes, however, I'm not like a huge fan of them unless they're, you know, doctored up with some brown sugar. So next time I would probably add a little bit of that. But overall, it was really good, and my husband absolutely loved it. And then here is the pie after it has been sitting in the fridge. And all I did to that is just add some whipped cream. Nothing fancy, because you will see that I clearly am not the best at putting whipped cream on a pie, but it was still really good. Like I said earlier in the video, it's a lighter pumpkin pie. I think the marshmallow gives it a really good taste. So if you give any of these a try, I would love to hear about it here or over on Instagram. And if you're new to my channel, I'm so glad that you stopped by and took the time to watch my videos. I would love to have you stick around and subscribe to be part of our YouTube family. But until next time, I will see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.